Hello there, people of the internet. So I was talking to somebody on what I thought was the most universal firearm, and I was under the impression that the most universal firearm was going to be your 12 gauge shotgun, because there's just so much that you can do with that. But whenever I was talking to this person, they said, hey, I'm going to change your mind real quick on what the most universal firearm is going to be, and by Jove, they did. Now, whenever I say universal firearm, I'm not talking about something that is exponentially good in absolutely every aspect of the field. I'm talking something more along the lines of it is good enough to achieve as many jobs as possible. It's like a universal firearm that you would take to, insert what it is that you want to do here, and you can use this particular firearm for it. So I was under the impression that for a long time the 12 gauge was going to be that, because you got buckshot, you got bird shot, you got slugs, you can touch out to fair distances, especially if you're rocking a rifle barrel in one of those. You can do a lot with a shotgun, but there's certain things that you cannot do with it. Same thing with like an AR. You can swap calibers, you can set it up for long range, you can set it up for real close range stuff, you can set it up for full power cartridges if you want to go the AR-10, intermediate cartridges, or you can set it up for a PCC, you can set it up for like whatever it is that you want to do. There's a setup for that platform, but even then there's still some limitations. So whenever my buddy that I was talking to, he said, hey, this is what I think is the most universal firearm, I was like, by Jove, I think that you're correct. And that would be the 357 Magnum revolver. Now, hear me out on this. I can already hear a bunch of angry comments down below, and people love posting comments long before they actually watch the video. So, your 357 Magnum, first things first, you gotta think about concealability. Something with a relatively short barrel like what I have right here, you can even get them with shorter barrels if you'd like. This right here is definitely concealable, especially for a large guy like me. If you want something even more concealable, then go with like a J frame with like a 1-inch or something like that. They make them in like alloy frames to where they're nice and lightweight. If you get something like this right here to where the cylinder comes out on the side, like this is your typical Smith & Wesson style latch, then you can use speed loaders to reload these things. So something like this definitely does make a valid concealed carry handgun if you want to use it for that particular route. But we're talking about a universal firearm, so along with being able to conceal it, this right here would also be good enough for like a home defense style of firearm. Typically a home defense weapon, you would want a little bit more size, a little bit more power, maybe something that has a little bit more capacity, but this right here would definitely serve that role. It doesn't do any one thing particularly well, but you definitely have the power with those speed loaders. You definitely have the ability to be able to have a fair amount of capacity, assuming that you practice with it and you can reload these things quite quick. I know Jerry Miculek can reload a revolver very well, but none of us are Jerry Miculek unless you're Jerry Miculek, in which case, hi Jerry, welcome to the party! But if you have the ability to reload one of these with any fair amount of speed, then something like this would be able to serve whatever kind of defensive roles it is that you want. On top of that, this is where I really start to think of a universal firearm. Something like this right here, you can carry around on your side all day long without having to worry about any sort of over-encumbrance. I'm trying to pick those words very carefully. But if you're walking around with like a shotgun with a minimum barrel length of 18 inches and you have that strapped to your side or on a sling or something like that, at some point in time, you're going to have to take that off, set it down, you're going to have access to your hands, you're going to have to do something with that to where it's not going to be on your body versus something like this on your hip, which is quite lightweight in comparison to a full rifle. It's quite capable in comparison to a full rifle as well. The 357 Magnum is not exactly a rifle cartridge, but boy oh boy, is it not an anemic cartridge either. There are plenty of places here in the United States where you can actually go hunting with a handgun like this, and if you're going after medium game, then your 357 Magnum, for the most part, should be able to handle basically whatever it is that you're going after. I wouldn't exactly want to take really long shots with something like this, But most people, when they go hunting, they're hunting something within 100 yards anyway, so if you get good enough with a handgun, then you should be able to touch out of that distance. If not, maybe try and get yourself a little bit closer, or lure whatever it is that you're going after a little bit closer into you. I know a lot of times people in the comments down below, they'll tell me that they typically hunt between 40 and 60 yards because they got some tree stand or some blind, or they'll sit on some corn somewhere, or they'll use some sort of bait or trick or something like that, in which case something like this would be more than adequate enough to be able to handle literally whatever it is that you're coming across. Even if you were to use something like this in defense of like a bear or something, this is a double action design, so all you gotta do is you gotta pull that trigger, it would go bang, and you have 6 rounds of full power 357 Magnum at your disposal. Now let's say that you don't want that full amount of power. Let's say you're going to go after some squirrels or something. The 357 Magnum can, in fact, take 38 special loads. The beauty about 38 special loads is they are also a rimmed cartridge. They headspace on the rim of the cartridge, and there's a lot of stretching that has to happen in that brass for it to reach the length of a 357 Magnum, meaning that you can reload them very, very easily, basically indefinitely, especially if you're firing them from a 357 Magnum chamber. So you got your lighter weight 38 special that you can use on like squirrels, raccoons, possums, whatever small game it is that you're going after, or you have that 357 Magnum capability if you want to go after something a little bit bigger. There are revolvers out there that are much larger in size that you can actually mount optics or scopes to if you want to go that route, but myself, I'm definitely an iron sight kind of guy. The big issue is my eyesight doesn't really agree with iron sights anymore. And that's just the way that the cookie crumbles. But all of the things that you can do with this right here, you can use it for home defense, you can use it for CCW, you can use it for hunting medium game, small game, you can use it for bear defense if you need to. You can get speed loaders, you can reload this really fast, it's always on your hip because it's nice and compact, concealable. I know walking through the jungles of Florida, if I have like a full-size rifle on me, it can be a little bit difficult getting through some of that heavier brush, but something like this right here, nice and small, like there's just a lot of really good arguments as to why this right here would be a really good universal firearm. The one thing that you can't really effectively do with this is go after waterfowl, where a shotgun would really shine, but unless you're directly going after waterfowl or something like that, then this right here should be able to handle a majority of your situations. If you're going after something that's long distance, then of course you might want an actual rifle, but anyone who knows anything about the average person knows that the average person, not the people who go out and get training, not the people who go out and shoot guns regularly, the average person doesn't do that. The average person, you give them a gun and they can't hit jack of anything beyond like 50 yards. Whenever I talk about that, as a matter of fact, I'll save that for another video, but for the average person, their capabilities, their needs, what it is that they're going to actually use a firearm for, this is just such a good option, and I really, really like it. I always thought that, you know, a 9mm would be the best universal option for a CCW, and then if you're going handgun hunting, maybe get yourself like a 44 or something like that. But even with the 44, yes, you have more power than a 357 Magnum. I'm sure someone's going to type that in the comments. I'd go the 44 route versus the 357 Magnum. But with a 357 Magnum, you also get those really lightweight loads of 38 Special. With the 44, you get 44 Special, but 44 Special's a pretty gosh darn potent round still in comparison to a 38 Special. I think that this is a good Goldilocks area of a fair amount of power without having to sacrifice the lower end of power, because you get those 38s as well. If you use a fast burning powder and you hand load your own rounds, you can actually undercharge your 38 Special to be a pretty gosh darn anemic cartridge. This way you don't have to worry about blowing a squirrel in half or something like that. It's actually a really good universal do everything option. So if you are going to go out and get one gun for doing whatever it is that you're doing, this might be something to look into. I wanted to share that with you guys because it opened up my eyes and I was like, wow, there really is a whole lot that you can do with something like that. So Thanks for watching. Appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.